Hi, my next guest is Stephen Brooks. He's been living in Chicago for 5 years. We got a lot of interesting information from him talking about pop-up retailing. I never knew what that was before talking to him, so we had a lot of interesting conversations about what that actually means. And we also got to get a real touch into what it's like in Chicago right now, which is, for me, here on the outskirts of Germany, pretty eye-opening. So check it out. I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did, as usual. And thank you for stopping by. The red light is blinking. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'd like to introduce you to Stephen Brooks. He's been, for 35 years, he's been immersed in all things retail. His career has taken him to 57 different countries, working with retailers, landlords, and retail-affiliated businesses, big and small. Stephen is an author, speaker, and TV commentator for the TD Ameritrade Network. And Stephen he's passionate about the future of retail and works with his clients to navigate through the complex issues that they face in an ever-changing consumer-driven world. And this thing, when I was looking through your bio, I really, the first question is, what is a pop-up? And I've never, before preparing for this, I never heard of it. So I've got this real beginning mind, but please just introduce yourself to the people that are listening, and then we'll jump into what pop-up retail is.
Thank you, Remington. It's great to be here. My name is Steve Brooks. I'm known as the pop-up retail expert. I've been in the industry for more years than I care to remember. As I say, for over 35 years. So I started, I think, when I was like 3.
Exactly.
In the industry. So you're catching on to that English humor already, Remington. I love it. So what is a pop-up? So actually, pop-ups go back to the beginning of time, believe it or not, and all the foundation of retail is embedded in pop-up retailing. We just used to call them markets and souks and bazaars, and long before we were trading goods for money, of course, we were trading goods for goods.
Right.
And so markets would just pop up, and that's where the whole retail industry started. Now, what's happened over the course of hundreds and hundreds of years, of course, is retail's taken on very, very different types of formats, and from big box grocery stores and big box DIY stores and department stores and malls and even bigger malls with ski slopes in them, and the whole world is immersed in them. But pop-up retailing in its purest form is short-term retailing, maybe up to kind of 3 months. It's a great way for people to test before they invest in a location. It's a great way for people to move too much inventory if they've got, they're certainly coming out of COVID. There's a lot of retailers stuck with inventory that they just weren't able to sell during the pandemic. Yeah. It's a great way to launch a business. It's a great way to launch a retail business. It's great for seasonal businesses, for Christmases and for Easter and events, Thanksgiving, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, all of those sorts of things. And it works for service businesses as well. So if you want to generate leads for your solar panel business, or you want to lawn care or real estate agents or credit cards or energy companies, I mean, the list, chiropractors, the list goes on and on and on and on. But it's a fantastic industry. It's part of the revival, because I don't want to say survival because retail isn't dead, but it's part of the retail revival coming out of COVID. And so I'm excited to be in such a wonderful industry.
It's interesting. It's this idea of having, I've never thought of it like that, just having this short-term perspective on. It's almost like A/B testing when you do a website or something like that. Yeah. Right? It's like, well, I saw this. I was on YouTube and I watched these guys create. They're like, well, we're just going to do a pop-up, and they just talked about it like, we're going to do it because it's a competition for these 4 guys, and they're going to try and sell each one is going to make a T-shirt, and they're going to try to see who's got the artistic skills with their T-shirt that they're selling. And so they have like this huge line, and they're YouTube guys, so they have probably enough of a following where when they invite everyone to come down there, that's a tricky part of it, right? Like, if I open up it feels like you open up a shop and you've got so much obviously if that's your thing, you've got so much energy into it, but how do you, there's always this problem of like, if nobody knows when I send out that message out to the world and it hits 10 people, that's a real big part of this pop-up. It has to be really effective, right? You have to have like this marketing strategy has to be very efficient to use this short period of time to get the feedback you need to have.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, and taking the YouTube experience, what we're seeing right now is a lot of online brands that already have, an established following, wanting to come out and actually meet their consumer face to face. In fact, the biggest online brand, Amazon, is opening up brick and mortar stores all over the place. But you're right. The just as any business, and it's not just relevant for pop-up, but just as any business, you have to have some kind of marketing machine behind your launch, and to get the message out there. Now, it's very fortunate doing a pop-up in a mall, because you've got a captive audience. There are already people visiting the mall for whatever reason because of the established retailers that are there. And depending on where you are in the mall, and that's one of the things that we help people work on and find great locations for them. But depending on where you are, obviously it has something to do with the success that you have. But we launched a program this year coming out of the pandemic called the Hollywood Effect, and we've described that as taking your pop-up shop, to kind of blockbuster level. And the whole idea of that is using exactly the same strategy that a blockbuster movie would use to promote itself. So there's some pre-promotion. You build the momentum. Maybe you find some lives that you do about the products, or you're posting on all of the social media platforms that are relevant to you to start gaining momentum. You let people know where you're going to be, how long you're going to be there, what the offers are, and then you continually get the message out there. With malls, of course, you can get a lot of support from them with going onto their websites and having banners or electronic media in the mall as well. So it's like any business, as I said, Remington. You've got to get the message out there to people. The key for me with retailing across the board, though, is about the amazing customer service that you offer. And if the customer service is amazing, not good, not great, not just fine, people come back. People want to tell other people. Now, people also want to tell other people if the service is crap as well. So, and with Google reviews and Yelp reviews and all that sort of thing, everybody needs to be on their game the whole time that they're open. But amazing customer service is where it sits. Good products, great pricing, and offering the consumer that whole experience that they're going to remember and come back for. 78% of people still want to touch, feel, and engage with the product before they buy it, and 64% of people will return to the same person that served them and gave them great advice to seek them out again to make another purchase. So if you're doing your job right, you're going to be successful.
That's interesting. I saw that too. I was on your YouTube channel, and I caught exactly that video. It was like a 2-minute video. You saying that 78% of people want to touch and feel and engage with the product before they buy it, and that was reassuring to me because it feels like Amazon's just taken over, right? It just feels like it. I mean, last year I think Jeff Bezos, I saw another statistic that he had $70 billion. So he made 70, or his net worth grew by $70 billion, and which makes sense because of the pandemic, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it depends which side of the fence you're on, right? Either Amazon is the devil incarnate as far as retail concerned, or Amazon is probably the best thing that ever happened to retail. I'm on this side of the fence. I think it's the best thing that ever happened to retail because it made everybody up their game, right? It made everybody put effort into online experiences, but at the same time making sure that the in-store experience was, as I was just saying, amazing. Even though through the pandemic, online sales rose, but they rose for all kinds of reasons, because people, it was the only way people could get groceries, for instance, or whatever. what you have to realize is, like I said, Amazon is actually now coming back out and opening brick and mortar stores anyway.
That's interesting.
Go, bookshops, the Amazon, the kind of top 20 stores, and so people are following suit with that.
See, that must be reassuring, actually, in a sense, because if Amazon is now coming and circling back to the brick and mortar, it shows you that this statistic, the 78%, they know these statistics too, right? And they know that to come full circle, that it's really hard to explain to people, though. I'm living in a province of Germany with about 11,000 people. We're really rural. We're very outskirts. Berlin, about an hour and a half away. We have a big freeway that's kind of close to us. And we're close to the Baltic Sea. So we have a little bit of tourism coming through. It's basically like the sole proprietor retailers in this village are super, super conservative. Online shops, I'm I provide this service. I have a marketing agency here. Well, I mean, gosh, you can't really even call it that, right? Like, because if I'm living from these people, these are my customers, right? And so the podcast makes more money than me building websites, So it's just I know I don't. I mean, the thing is, I'm not talking in German, so maybe you can talk a little bit of trash because, but it's a sad state of affairs here, and people they even had about. I remember 2 years ago we had there was like this whole. There's a group of, I guess you would call it kind of like a Lions Club or like a business club that we have here locally, and I'm part of that, as well as my wife. And they got together and they're like, well, we're going to do close all of our shops and make black in our windows and say Amazon is killing us, and going on this whole other fear-driven, if you don't support us, your local business, we're going to go out of business. If you don't buy here, even though we have worse customer service, we have no online shop, but support us. Pour me, help me, hands out. And it's like, that's not going to bring anybody to your shop. If anything, it's just going to be like, I better go to Amazon now. I guess I can't buy anything there anymore. A
strategy like that, I think, is going to have the reverse effect. Totally, as you say, that's going to drive people to online because A, it's free advertising for Amazon, and B, exactly. you just stopped your consumer from actually coming in and purchasing. Look, the whole retail industry has changed so much since the internet. Anyway, but there's a way that they can coexist. And as I was saying, we have lots of online brands, lots of Etsy shop owners, Shopify owners that are coming out because they want to, they want to get feedback from their consumer, but they see the value in that one-on-one experience. But they can coexist. So if you can extend your range, even as a small merchant in a small province in Germany, right? You could extend your range by having an online store that has all the other products in your niche that you can't sell, that you could have drop shipped, and have an iPad or a laptop, in store, so people could buy the other things that they wanted. People. I've been saying since we started to come out of the pandemic that actually local is the new global, right? And the reason for that is that it doesn't matter if you go into a mall in California, if you go into a mall in Dubai, you go to a mall in Germany, London, Chicago, where I live, right? They all kind of look the same. The architecture looks the same. The retail mix kind of looks the same. Global brands are there, right? But all the pandemic did was escalate the demise of poorly run businesses that were either over leveraged or had not kept pace with consumer demand, and had fallen out. The consumer, the customer, had fallen out of love with them, and so that's no surprise. All it's done is accelerate that, right? But there is a way that businesses can still thrive, and if you take I'm trying to think of what might be a great example. I don't know. Take a small motor parts store, for instance, that can't offer every motor part, for every car ever, but they could have an iPad and a drop ship arrangement to have alternators shipped for odd cars or whatever as an additional service, or have it drop shipped into their store so people could come and collect it. You know, there's all kinds of things that you can do. If you're in homewares and you don't sell sofas, right? Maybe there's a way you can sell sofas by finding somebody that drop ships them.
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole different way of retailing out there if people are prepared to dive in and you know, have the confidence in themselves and the products that they're trying to sell. The retailers are known for being slow to adapt. You know, that's why you see the demise of places like, you know, Macy's and Penny's and so on, and
yeah,
you know,
these
big brands in Europe.
Sears, right? Too, like I remember Sears.
Yeah, Sears. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Great classic example, right? So they're slow to, you know, retail is slow to adapt. But again, what the pandemic did was, you guys need to play catch up, and you need to play catch up pretty quickly if you want to continue. And there was all kinds of innovations, you know, drop ship and curb collections and all of those sorts of stuff that we need to just keep that momentum of innovation going, and that's how retail will continue to thrive.
What do you think about, because drop shipping is something that people that listen that are in retailing, they understand it. And I remember, like, my first exposure to that was probably a Tim Ferriss book. I mean, right? And that was, I think, the 4-Hour Work Week.
4-Hour Working Week. I read it myself. Yeah. Great book.
Yeah, and I think he's also the big investor in Shopify. I think he's one of the that kind of turned out to be. So it's interesting for people that don't know what that is. When I sit here with these people here, like my customer base here in the rural area in Germany, they don't know what Shopify is, which is kind of like, wow, that's been around for a while. You know, that's a sign that there's a real big gap that has to be bridged in especially these mom and pop shops where it's like you have to go with the times. Like, what's the problem of just having an iPad connected to, I guess the hard thing, I had this actually the other day. We have a garden center here, and they came to me with the same idea. We want to go online. We noticed that with the pandemic, this is definitely like the time now. We know, obviously, you know, all the signs are pointing to, I need to have an online shop. And they actually didn't end up working with me because they found a company that specializes in garden center, like, you know, these types of supplies, this type of retail drop shipping. Mm-hmm. Right. And so it's almost like these certain verticals there's already businesses out there that are offering drop shipping in these different verticals. And so it was like, absolutely, you just have to kind of Google it and be like, well, I want to drop ship for a garden center. So we have a brick and mortar shop here, and who can offer me the solution that I, you know, for the website, for the back end solution, you know. And if you can connect that to a Shopify shop or however you connect it, you need someone to kind of help you with that. It becomes relatively technical, relatively fast, just as far as like, they're all afraid of having they're afraid of having, like, do I need to have what kind of boxes? It starts like, they always talk about boxes for some reason. Like how many boxes should I have? You know, I order a whole bunch of boxes, but they're not the same size. And then you know, there becomes all these little minutia that
I know. Yeah. I've had that with clients myself. You're right. Like you said, I think it's like dealing with experts like yourself and people like me, where you know, you're trying to guide them through that. And overcoming that fear of, you know, the way new technology and new retailing is working. Yeah. The thing that I think that certainly small retailers don't latch onto is that we do live in this amazingly connected world, right? You know, through social media, through Facebook and through Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and LinkedIn and all the other stuff that's, you know, free, right? But I'll give you a classic example of this. I was at a workshop being run by a friend of mine. I was asked to guest speak at a workshop he was running. And one of the things he talked about was a business called Choc Brothers, that was based in New York. And they hand make this chocolate, and they put these videos together, and they're this great YouTube channel about how they made the chocolate and so on. And they were shipped. It was a small little shop in a kind of little place in New York, but they were shipping all over the world, and people were waiting 3-4 months because they were so small for them to ship. Fantastic. Because they'd done such a great job. Yeah. They did such a great job with me that my next trip to New York, I actually went to see them and meet them and talk to them and took a look around and told them how, the journey of how I'd found them. Why can't a provincial retailer in Germany do something similar? I mean, maybe there isn't the uniqueness of what they do, but maybe they're quite quirky. There's a number of people that you see on Instagram that just have what I would call regular mum and pop stores, toy shops and tea shops and homeware shops that do this amazing job of self-promotion and just being a bit quirky and challenge of the day or question of the day or whatever it might be, that just builds this following of people that eventually will click and buy from them. Yeah. But you have to put that effort in. I just think maybe you've got to be a bit more open-minded about it and put yourself out there and take the risk.
Yeah, it's almost like this idea of having a personality about it and just not being afraid to open yourself up to being like a lot of people. They don't want to even like. I have this studio here in Pasewalk. I built spent all this money on this nice studio, and I'm like, just come in. All you have to do, it just costs you time. That's it. Yeah. Come in. Let's talk about it. And they're like, oh, I can't do it in front of the camera. I'm like, this is my new thing. Finally, like I said before we got online, I was like, what? Let's turn the camera off. Let's do an audio version. Let's just talk. Yeah. Let's just talk about it, and then get them in, because it's like this. It's true. It's almost like something that's deeper inside of these people that when they're doing it from the heart and when they believe in what they're doing, it transposes, it creates a following automatically. It's just this communication, this bridging the gap from what it is, what your special calling is, and putting it out there. And when you see something like Absolutely. That with chocolate, you think like anybody can make chocolate if you really want to. I mean, it's just but it's not that. It's the attention to detail and the personality themselves. Probably on YouTube. Yeah. They have a certain type of charisma, and they sit there and they make jokes, or I don't know. It's not forced. It's authentic.
But it's authentic and genuine. It's exactly the word I was going to use, and that's, I think that's the big key with people, that you don't have to have a Hollywood production. Being authentic and genuine really does resonate with people.
Yeah, it's. I find it. I mean, when you say it, it makes sense, but the truth of it is like, especially when you're starting something new. Today, Eric and Eric's off camera. He's my producer. I'm building out a van for like a camping van, right. and I'm building these. We're building these drawers that you pull out underneath the bed. So like the bed is big in the back, and it's and so underneath there's like this garage, right? And so we're like we're building these drawers. And it's like the first time I've ever done anything like that, Like I remember in high school I had like shop class. That was about it. And I realized just how much I suck at doing something for the first time, And it's like you just got to give yourself that break. Like
Absolutely.
You just can't believe from the first day that you turn your phone, that you're online, that your shop is working, and it's all. You just have to kind of give yourself that breathing room to just try something out new and give your business the chance to be part of. It's 2021. 2021. I thought cars are going to be flying by now. You don't have an online shop? Like, it just kills me. I always feel like, and then the other day we were sitting there together with our municipal. I don't know how to say it in English. Municipality. Yeah, like
municipality.
Like the local business that runs the water and the electric and all that.
Yeah.
He's a cool guy. The boss there. We had like a meeting about this topic exactly, and he was like, "Well, what did he say?" He was like, "We need to have like someone come from outside, and we have to have like a presentation, and so that it's not coming from someone internal in here in this small village. It has to be someone that brings respect with them and has so that people pay attention or something like that. And I just kind of thought to myself, like, that's just a waste of time and money. I don't really know what this guy's going to change in their minds. I don't know.
I know. I want to go back to something you said earlier about you've got to give it time.
Yeah.
When you launch a site or when you go online for the first time or whatever it might be, because we are all hung up on likes and comments and hearts and thumbs up and smiley faces. Yeah. We're all hung up on that, but there are so many more people that watch it that don't comment. There are so many more people that watch it and enjoy it. There are so many more people that absorb that content without you realizing that as long as you keep doing it, eventually it will click with them, and they will come back to you. And just because you launch a site or you launch an Instagram account and you don't get 1,000 likes or 1 million views or whatever it might be, does not mean people aren't seeing it. No. And so and I hear that a lot from people. In fact, before we came on, we were talking about Jens Heitland, a friend of mine who I did a podcast with a while back, and he was somebody that had never been in front of the camera in terms of what he does, and has become very skilled, very proficient at it, and is very natural with it. And he has a lot of people say to him, "Yeah, I watch you all the time," but they never comment, they never like. And I think you've got to persevere with that. You've got to just be aware that just because you aren't getting that, or a smiley face or the heart or whatever it might be, people are still seeing that content. And as long as you remain authentic and genuine, and as long as your message is consistent and you are who you are, people will come. The old saying, build it and people will come. They absolutely will.
Yeah, I think that I personally, I'm a consumer of podcasts. Like I've been listening to podcasts since I moved to Germany. It was my way for keeping my connection back home. And I just love this format. I mean, for 13, 14 years, I've been listening to podcasts. And again, here, I don't want to complain about where I live. I feel like the whole episode here, but when I say that to my father-in-law, for example, say podcast, and he's like, "What's a podcast?" Nobody knows what a podcast is. So it's just crazy. It really sometimes is wild just to think how far away you are from, if something happens, I used to time it, cause I'm from California originally. If there was a trend in California, 10 years later, it hits here,
It gets there.
It's just weird to think that though, because we're in such an interconnected world. Like you said, to see that, these are all these things, all these social accounts and all that. It's just too bad to not be able to use it for what it's there for. I mean, there's also the whole negative side of it too, but we're just talking about what it's actually good at is retail, really. I mean, it shines there, and if you can make that connection between, like you said, being authentic and keeping your message, keeping it straight, and I think I have with the podcast, for me personally, I have a certain amount of either I do it 120% and I take the time and I prepare and I give stories from myself, and we have this human connection. Either I do that or I just don't do it at all, because me just sitting around with my buddies drinking a beer, no one cares about that, as much as it seems like it would be cool to get paid for that. I'm sorry, there's a small market for people wanting to be in part of your drunken conversation with your homies,
Exactly. It's exactly right.
It works it works for Joe Rogan, but it's like Joe Rogan, he's a comedian. He's on UFC. He's not just a podcaster.
No. No, absolutely. Absolutely. But interestingly enough, more people, I didn't know who he was until I listened to his podcast.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Me too.
So, you will come into contact with people through different mediums that have been active in other areas for years, but all of a sudden what they're doing, podcasting, resonates. I think it's a great medium. I think that every every small town in Germany should have their own podcast.
Yeah, thank
like
you.
you were saying,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
They should. You absolutely should. If you're listening to this and you're a small town in Germany, you should get hold of Remington because he knows how to do this properly, right? What better way of talking to your community, but also talking to the world than having your own show, your own podcast, where you can be who you are and you can talk to everybody about your community. I think it's a wonderful innovation.
Yeah, I mean,
innovation.
It used to be so hard, right? It used to be you'd have to be behind all these corporate walls, and now it's just like just turn on a camera, turn on the mics, and have like a plan of what you want to talk about, and like retail is a big topic. It's a great it supports people and it gets people thinking and talking, and especially it's so easy to consume. You didn't even know what was going on, and now you know that in 2 weeks there's going to be a sale over here because the owner of that business was just mentioned it during a 15-minute conversation. And you talk about like the local stuff that goes on around here, and I don't know, it's nothing's too small, nothing's too. I liked what you said earlier. What did you say? You said local is the new global. I love that idea. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think this is where chambers of commerce and mayors and local politicians have a real part to play in the local economy by getting behind ideas like that and by promoting. You want to be mayor of a town, or you want to be a politician in a town. What better way than to bring the community together, in an activity like that, or whether it's this whole pop-up event for the whole town, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But I think that local is the new global. So make use of all of this technology that is available to you. Why wouldn't you? We didn't. We're adapting so fast now that retailing isn't just about opening the doors and turning on the lights and thinking people are going to walk in. Yes, you've got to work hard at it, but the fundamentals of that, Remington, come back to something I believe with every fiber of my body, that if it's not bringing you joy, then stop doing it. Right? And maybe some of these guys, it's not bringing them joy, and they're just going through the motions, and it's easy to blame somebody else than blame yourself, right? Yeah. So, maybe they've just fallen out of love with it, and maybe they need to find something that rekindles their enthusiasm for their business and for their customers. Because even in a small provincial place in Germany or in France, I have friends that live in Metz and Luxembourg and so on. That if the community is shrinking, then your business is shrinking. People are moving away to go and work in different cities, different countries. Eventually that's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, right? So you've got to really keep people interested in, why is it worth staying around here? Why should we shop at this store? Why should we go to that bakery? Why should we go to that pharmacy? Why should we use this petrol station? Because when you go in there, it's amazing customer service. When you go in there, it's community. When you go in there, you meet the guy that was on the podcast that was just so entertainingly funny, and you never knew he was funny because every time you see him in the store, he just looks like a grumpy old man.
Yeah,
it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
That sometimes you do want to get people and just get them by the shoulders and give them a good shake and ask them to wake up and smell the coffee, right?
Yeah, but
sorry, I get a bit passionate about stuff like that. I'm sorry. I'll get off the soapbox now. I'm so sorry.
No, that's great. That's exactly how it is. That's how I feel. Like that's why I laugh so hard, because it's I've been here for 13 years, and ever since, my father-in-law is one of these guys. He is like that. Like that's the reason that the pharmacy that my wife ended up taking over from him, in 2016. That's the reason it's the biggest pharmacy in this village that we live in. It's because of that type of thinking. Because he's like a typical pharmacist in Germany is someone that kind of hides behind their job. Like they're not into marketing. They don't think of it as a business. They think of it as, I'm a pharmacist, which is good, right? I mean, you want to have this moral code of a pharmacist to be the top thing, obviously.
Totally.
We don't want to have any medications being mixed with the wrong type of mix. No. It can be bad, But what I always appreciated about him was well, as an American, frankly, his capitalistic style of running even a pharmacy, where people like would tell me like, well, what can you do there? You can't do anything with a pharmacy. It's just is what it is. You can't push the button. There's no buttons to push like you can with like, at the t-shirt company or whatever. But it's not true. It's maybe a little trickier, and it's a little bit, the structures are a little bit more rigid, but
Sure.
I think, like you said, just customer service, something is where, I have to say again, I'm just so negative on the Germans today, man. but the Germans, they even say it themselves, that it's just like the customer service thing is just not, that's not really a big part of the culture here. And it really sticks out. Like if I go somewhere, I go to eat somewhere in a restaurant and we get great service, I'm positively, but I'm definitely surprised. Like my expectations I'm way lower since as opposed to being in California where everyone is like your best friend. They don't remember your name the next day, but it's like this superfluous, oh my God, we're so connected. And oh, thank you so much for coming and being at my table and having such a great night. And then you come back there the next night and you'd be like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing to have you here. And you'd be like, well, but in Germany, it's like they just don't care. Like I've been so surprised. Like the drink's empty, and I'm like, can I get a drink? And he'd be like, yeah, come over. Ugh, man, if you're lucky, you get a drink. Like you get one, for the whole dinner. I was like, I'd like to have.
Interesting.
But Franzi's like that too, my wife. And so in the pharmacy, she has this type of personality where she's very interactive with the people that want it, right? That not everyone's that customer.
No, absolutely.
But the customers that come in and they need help, and Franzi will stop what she's doing and she'll take the time to like go in there, and you can't get better marketing than that. You don't have to print anything out. You don't have to do any, like that person will go around to all of her friends and say, gosh, she really took the time with me. And she sat down and she figured out something that I haven't been able to. We've had things where she hasn't been able to figure out 6 or 7 months, going to every doctor. No idea. And Franzi sat down there with her for 2 hours and figured it out. And, this rash that her mother's had, like I think it was the daughter, and the older mother at home has like this rash on her skin, and they're giving her like the worst things. I think, where you hear stories, you're like, no way. But it's just that personal connection, taking the time with somebody, there's nothing that can ever replace that. There's no online shop that's ever because that's us. We're humans. We need this connection. We want this connection, and just taking that into account in everything you do it spreads the word without any
Absolutely
effort.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
See, that was my soapbox. I'm sorry.
Well, we would call that added value in retail, of course. That you take the time, but you're right that we're a social animal, and we've been locked away, for 12 months.
For sure.
Some people longer.
Yeah.
So and certainly in just coming back to pop-up, certainly with pop-up retailing, it's one of the things that people are really excited about, because it's going to be something different. But you're right, it's adding the value up front, that maybe that person, no one had actually ever taken the time to spend that much time with her to find out, to find a solution. And they're the things that people remember. They're the things that they will go off and tell other people. And so that whole human connection, and that to me is a typical example of amazing customer service. That human connection is so vital, whether you're a Chanel shop or a pharmacy in Germany. It's those points that people remember, that human connection, that touches you. For me, and I get what you were saying about that whole California thing, about that you go in there the next night and they don't remember you.
Goes too
for
far.
Me,
yeah.
I like to go back places where they do remember you.
Right.
When I first moved to Chicago, I used the same Starbucks every day for like 2 years, every day for 2 years. And within about 3 months, and there was a line every morning, but by the time I got to order my drink, it was ready.
Yeah.
Because as I walked in, someone would shout, "Same as normal, Steve," and how lovely is that? that kind of, I feel valued. And it doesn't matter that it's Starbucks. You could be the small local shop, the small local bakery, the small local coffee shop, the small DIY store, whatever it might be. But you have that kind of connection with your customer. They're going to come back all the time because they love, as I do, they love that feeling part that you're welcome, you're valued. So important.
I was going to ask you too, because you brought up Chicago. How long have you been in Chicago?
Coming up for 5 years now.
Yeah. So that's it. I've been there. I've visited Chicago, but I'm sure that every city has its own feeling. And see, I'm complaining about my tiny little village here in Pasewalk, but what's it like in Chicago, where it's like, well, this is a metropolitan area. You've got millions of people living there.
It gets a bad rep, as you know. Shootings and gangs and all of that. And I have to say, you probably noticed that I have a British accent. Anybody that's listening, when I first came here, the thing that really struck me was the amount of poverty as well on street corners. Very, very shocked by that, and continue to be shocked by that. There are lots of boarded up shops here now. There are lots of empty units. There are, the roads are quieter. Things over the last couple of months have started to get busier and so on. But there's a definite shift in atmosphere. Without getting into the whole political thing that's gone on in the country over the last few years, but I think the Chicago is either a great place to live if you're in a particular demographic, or it must be hell for some people. I mean, it really must, and it saddens me. It really does, because you see, as I said, you see this poverty in what's supposed to be, the greatest country in the world, and the strongest economy, and all of the things that people love to extol the virtues about, but at grassroots, right at the grassroots, there's a desperate need for kindness and for caring. And there are a lot of good people that do a lot of good things. And I'm not going to bang on about all the billionaires and all the millionaires, but I'm of the opinion that you only need sufficient, right? And it's great that you want to build rockets and go into space, and it's great that you want to compete with somebody because you want to build a rocket to go into space. But and I'm sure that all these people do great work, and the Gates Foundation and all of those sorts of things. But it's a drop in the ocean. It must be, because if there's this much, that much poverty and division, and in the world, it was in Chicago rather, it becomes quite concerning. Yeah. And now I'm beating up on Americans. So
yeah, well,
you'll go at Germany. So.
Listen,
the UK is no better. Can I just say that the UK isn't any better either, but it's sad. It is incredibly sad.
See, that's one of the I don't know if it's a benefit, but I guess it's one of the here where I'm at, you don't really notice it, right? Because here there's not much going on. There's not a lot to break. There's not a lot of the demographics stayed the same and everything, and obviously in the States, I've missed out on this entire political. I mean, I've watched it from afar. I talk with my parents, but to hear it from you, who lives in the city, that's it's actually something I haven't really. I think we had a podcast. I was talking to someone that was in New Jersey. That was very awakening to me, because he just mentioned that, like, every single person he knows 3 or 4 people that died from COVID, which was just like, I don't know anybody, and I know a lot of people that don't know anybody, right? Because we're just so sparsely populated out here that it never really hit this peak that was so deadly. I assume that's what the reason is, but when you say that the poverty in Chicago, and I could hear it in your voice, you're like, gosh, we just this kindness and this compassion. What happened to that? Why is that missing?
Yeah.
You know, if you want to fly out, and I'm a big Elon Musk fan. I love the idea of going to Mars and doing all these great things and driving the Tesla and having an electrical car. I mean, I'm for technology, but you're right. Like, where's the priority, right? Like, we're just gonna leave the Earth in its dust and move on to Mars and start again new. It's the feeling, right? And just let the people on Earth be, murder each other every day.
Who knows? But you're right. I mean, but and again, I love Elon Musk. I think, he's one of the best innovators of our time. The same as Job, but surely, that there's you could turn that attention and that brilliance inward,
right, to
the real crisis that there is, and not just in America. I mean, across the world. But my experience is that of Chicago, where there is somebody on every street corner, where there is, there are, and you almost get to know them because they're there every day.
Yeah.
And we all have a responsibility for that, I think, and we can't. And again, we can't help everybody, and there are people that don't want to be helped. I understand all of that, but it would be great, I think, for humanity that maybe the 5 richest people in the world just got together and went, here's X, right, and this is what we're going to do with it. We are, and just as this big humanitarian gesture. And as I said, I know you've got the Gates Foundation and all of the good work that they do, but even they come in for a bad rep about some of the stuff that's going on and so on. So nobody's, people who live in greenhouses, as the saying goes, shouldn't throw stones. But I think that there's more that could be done.
Yeah,
I really do.
Yeah, that's a tricky one for sure.
That kind of poured cold water on the whole thing, didn't it?
Yeah, you know what though? Like I don't mind it, because I feel like we hit on something. I mean, I actually in the in the Chicago area, the idea of doing pop-ups, and I was thinking, like, well, you did tell the story about the chocolate company out of New York, and so I thought maybe my original idea was to actually just kind of bring out maybe like a local client of yours that you worked with that was more of a success story. We can kind of leave the dark ages behind us for now.
Can I tell you then, because I'm working with 4 guys right now.
Yeah.
This is very current and very exciting. So these are four young guys that have online brands, making their way in the world, and for streetwear brands, t-shirts, hoodies, hats, that kind of stuff. And 9th of July in a place called Vernon Hills, which is slightly north of downtown Chicago, we're opening a pop-up shop for them. Cool. Right? So here's the thing about this, Remington, that there is so much enthusiasm for what they're doing. They are so focused on making it a success. For me, they're a joy to work with, because they kind of embraced everything that we talk about in terms of making a successful pop-up. And so nologo.com, the store is going to be called Local Heroes, which is very apt. Go and check some of those guys out. It's going to be really, really exciting. So we're planning on opening it on the 9th of July. We have another one in downtown Chicago from a retailer that's in Dubai that's going to be opening a pop-up store right downtown Chicago on Michigan Avenue at the end of July as well. I mean, there's so much going on with different brands and different activations, and as I said, it doesn't matter if you're in a service industry, if you're a startup, if you want to test, you want to do A/B testing on a product, you just want to get customer feedback, you want to get rid of that inventory. It's a great medium for retailing, and I love it.
That's cool. Yeah, we'll definitely put that in the show notes too. Like after the episode, then I'll write up a little introduction and and some hashtags and all of that good marketing jazz.
Get them in there. Get the hashtags in.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and maybe I'll hit you up afterwards and then try and get the Pacific is how the way 3-year-olds say specific, specific, details so that we have it all like lined up in the show notes, on YouTube. Superb. And if we can even cut it out as a clip or something like that. Like, that's what I love about this. After we're done, it's like we have this whole 45-minute conversation, but using clips of it here, putting it over there, doing a little bit of Instagram video loops and whatnot. It's just
absolutely
it's a fun medium, and this free form just allows us to go into the whole depths of the pandemic in Chicago, and then come back and say, well, look, there is this other thing. It creates this type of opportunity, right? Obviously there's got to be opportunity there, and you have to just be able to be willing to want to take that first step. And this idea of a pop-up is cool. Like I said, it was totally new to me before our conversation today. So thank you for taking the time to
My pleasure.
Share it with me.
My pleasure. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. On that note, then maybe we want to just say goodbye.
Yeah. Thanks. Hey, listen, if you do want to get hold of me, you can reach me at steve@thepopupexpert.com. Or Google the Pop-Up Expert. I'm the number one hit on Google for that. But it's been a delight, Remington, a really, really thought-provoking conversation, and I've really enjoyed today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks again for your time, Stephen. Maybe hang around after we get offline real quick so that...
Sure.
Okay. All right, bye-bye.